Well, I'm not so sure that Rupert Murdoch is going to be invited into the TikTok buying consortium any longer because I just read his bombshell motion to dismiss the defamation case that Donald Trump brought, the case that he brought in Miami. Well, let's just put it this way. The Wall Street Journal is not holding back in its motion to dismiss. It's effectively telling the world, and certainly the judge here, Judge Gales, that not only is the reporting about the birthday album and Donald Trump's contribution to Epstein's birthday album, you know, that bawdy, obscene card that he drew and put a signature on, along with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people in a 2-volume leather-bound scrapbook birthday card from 30 years ago. Not only is that true, not only is that the truth of that, therefore no defamation, confirmed by the Senate, by the House Oversight Committee, who subpoenaed that very same book from the Epstein estate and got their hands on it and published it. So there's nothing defamatory about the reporting. That's their first argument. But then they go for the jugular. They say effectively that Donald Trump, as I've said before, does not have a reputation that can be defamed because he said so many disgusting things about women, that his reputation is both effectively obscene and bawdy and misogynistic. And they cite to statements that he's made and never denied, reporting about him that he's never denied, the Access Hollywood tape, and other comments. What they're saying to the world is Donald Trump's reputation cannot be defamed by publishing a obscene or bawdy birthday card, okay? Because it's completely consistent with his own reputation. Even if it weren't true, it could not be the basis of defamation. We call that defamation per quad, meaning you have to prove that you have a reputation capable of being defamed. Now, I said this is exactly the angle of attack that should have been used by E. Jean Carroll. You know, when he went after E. Jean Carroll and said, oh, she's defaming me by calling me a rapist or a sex abuser, I would say, based on the Access Hollywood recording where you said you could grab a woman by her genitalia and get away with it and women love it, I don't think you have a reputation that can be defamed. Well, they went there. We've got the new filing. It's now up on Legal AF Substack for you to read. And this was what we were waiting for, because none of the discovery or depositions in the case are going to start until Judge Gales rules on this motion to dismiss after full briefing down in Miami. I'm going to read to you from it. I'm going to show you the exhibits that they decided to attach to remind the court and the world of Donald Trump's crappy reputation, misogynist, abusive, and the rest. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. Let's get to the new filing. First, a little bit of a disclosure. I know some of the lawyers that are involved in this case on behalf of the Wall Street Journal. George Lemieux, Gunster Yoakley, very good lawyer in Fort Lauderdale, and has done work for the Democratic Party. Andy Levander from Deckert. I've worked with Andy Levander. I've hired Andy Levander for cases. Excellent lawyer. Glad to see that he's involved in the case. And then they've got one of the highest considered First Amendment law firms in the country representing news media, Davis, Wright, Tremaine. So they got the right lawyers. Now let's get to the allegations. They say for their defense, first, the article is true. That the birthday book, as produced by the Epstein estate and later publicly released by the House Oversight Committee, contains a letter identical to the one described in the article. Second, that article cannot damage plaintiff's reputation as a matter of law because of his self-described reputation is so bad it cannot be defamed. Let's move to we've got the birthday book. We all know what that. We'll put it up on the screen. We all know with that submission. And, you know, this allowed me the opportunity to look back through the 3 volumes of the birthday book. I mean, when you see it, these are handmade, handwritten submissions, some typed, many hand-drawn, cartoons, scrapbook, pasted, multimedia. Everybody in the book has confirmed effectively that this was their original artwork contribution to Jeffrey Epstein 3 years before the world came down on him when he finally got caught as being a child sex trafficker. Before that, they just thought he was a man about town, a buddy of theirs. And buried in volume 2 not even volume 1, is Donald Trump's submission. He wants the world to believe that everybody's is true and accurate, everybody's is genuine and authentic, but his. And the more you look at it, like in its original form, the more you know that this is, this isn't something that got pasted in later. This is something from 30 years ago that was submitted. I don't know if it was by him, for him, or on behalf of Donald Trump, but it's in the book. So, and the court wants, the lawyers here want the judge to take judicial notice of the fact that the book has now, of course, been published by the House Oversight Committee. Then they get to the section starting on page 10, when they say the article is not defamatory per quad, and particularly because the article is consistent with the plaintiff's reputation. Get ready for the things that they attach, some of which I had actually forgotten Donald Trump had said or done. On page 12, they say in their filing, plaintiff also cannot state a defamation claim based upon an allegation that he sent a bawdy birthday letter to his former friend because long before the article was published, plaintiff was publicly known to be friendly with Epstein and admitted to instances of using bawdy language when discussing women. I think they're being kind there. How about disgusting, obscene language when it comes to women? Plaintiff thus cannot allege that the article damaged his reputation. In other words, he doesn't have a reputation that's capable of being damaged. A plaintiff may not pursue a defamation claim where no further harm could have occurred to his reputation as a result of those challenged statements. And that they're asking the court to take judicial notice of past statements that he's made. Here on page 14, President, first of all, in the New York Magazine article from 2002, 3 months before the birthday book, Donald Trump gave an interview in which he said, this is on page 14, he said about Jeffrey Epstein that he's a terrific guy. He's known him for 15 years. He's a lot of fun to be with. And that, of course, he likes women on the young side. In addition, they put a lot of emphasis on the Access Hollywood recording during the 2016 election, where there was widespread coverage of Donald Trump saying out loud, and this is not AI, this is not phony, he said out loud, and it was caught on tape, I don't even wait, and when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. You can grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. Sorry, but I'm just reading from the actual filing. In campaign statements, he admitted to making the comment. He said, I said it, but it was just locker room banter. He has a well-documented history over which he has never sued, the motion continues, of making bawdy comments in venues like the Howard Stern Show. And then there's a transcript of giving an interview on the Howard Stern Show. In which he, and then they continue on page 14 over to 15, where he says to Esquire magazine, it really doesn't matter what the media writes as long as you've got a young woman and a beautiful piece of ass. These are all statements before the Epstein album and before the publication of the article. In 2006, on Larry King Live, plaintiff referred to actress Angelina Jolie as having been with so many guys, she makes me look like a baby. Any allegation that President Trump wrote a bawdy birthday note is thus consistent with his public reputation that he has himself acknowledged for using locker room talk and can't possibly state any harm. But if you look at the exhibits, which they want the court to take judicial notice of, it gets even worse. In an article which is attached as Exhibit 10, a Politico article from August 2015, the 199 most Donald Trump things Donald Trump has ever said, written by Michael Kruse of Politico at the time. If you go on to page 3 and 4 of the exhibit, starting with number 23, well, I'll just read you some here that the lawyers want the judge to take judicial notice of. 23. Oftentimes when I was sleeping with one of the top women in the world, I would say to myself, thinking about me as a boy from Queens, can you believe what I'm getting? 24. I've never had any trouble in bed. 25. I have many women that work for me. CBS Face the Nation. 27, all of the women on The Apprentice flirted with me, consciously or unconsciously. That's to be expected. When a man leaves a woman, especially when it's perceived that he has left for a piece of ass, a good one, there are 50% of the population who will love the woman who has left. That's from Vanity Fair in 1990. Number 30, you know who's one of the great beauties of the world, according to everybody? And I helped create her. Ivanka, my daughter, Ivanka. She's 6 foot tall. She's got the best body. She made a lot of money as a model, a tremendous amount, to Howard Stern. 31, every guy in the country wants to go out with my daughter. 32, she does have a nice figure. I've said if Ivanka wasn't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. ABC The View, March 6, 2006. 33, I've known Paris Hilton from the time she's 12. Her parents are friends of mine. The first time I saw her, she walked into the room and I said, who the hell is that? Well, at 12, I wasn't interested. I've never been into that. They're sort of always stuck around that 25 category. Howard Stern, 2003. Number 34, there's nothing I love more than women, but they're really a lot different than portrayed. They are far, far worse than men. They are aggressive. 35, if Hillary Clinton can't satisfy her husband, what makes her think she can satisfy America? 36, about women, you have to treat them like shit. New York Magazine, November 9th, 1992. Hard to believe with just those comments he ever became the president of the United States again, and that women voted for him, or anybody that supports women. They then attached the Access Hollywood transcript that we all know about, in which he said he could grab a woman by her genitalia. They then attach the New York Magazine statement, in which he said that Jeffrey Epstein likes young women like he does. And then they attach the subpoena in which they obtain the leather-bound book. What's going to happen next? Now that you heard that evidence. And for me, most of this they did not need to do in order to get their motion to dismiss granted. They did it on purpose in order to continue to embarrass and send a signal to Donald Trump that they are not to be trifled with, and they are not going to settle this case, at least for now. Although there is a backdoor settlement mechanism, is there not? There's new reporting that Donald Trump, having brokered the Chinese sale of TikTok to his friends and family, apparently, who will then buy TikTok and its algorithm and secure it from the Chinese. Part of that group, Larry Ellison, Oracle, whose son, who's the Nepo baby son, owns Skydance, which bought Paramount, which owns CBS. See the connectivity here? But part of that group has been rumored to be Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch and Fox. So you could see how this would be brokered, right? There'll be a dismissal of the case, and then Rupert will invest, and TikTok, and then all will be better. But for now, they're certainly not acting that way. I'm sure that Rupert and Lachlan approved of this filing by these very fine lawyers. Next step will be an opposition paper, some sort of crappy response by Donald Trump, which I don't have to cover. And then there'll be a final brief and then an oral argument before Judge Gale. And he'll make a final ruling. If I had to guess, it'll be sometime in November, maybe before the holidays. We'll report on it right here. I'm glad you're here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm Michael Popok. Hit the free subscribe button here and on Legal AF YouTube. Till my next report, this is Michael. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.